Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So today's session is going to be on saving and investing. As usual, we have our friends at KeyBank. Derek Stover will be presenting today. And I just want to touch on a couple quick things before we get started, a couple benefit updates. As all of you should know, we will be having a medical premium holiday. For those small companies, that occurred last Friday. For TBI and TSMD, that'll be this coming Friday. So you will not see a benefit deduction taken for your medical premium. Yes. Anyone who has their spouse enrolled, please make sure to fill out the spousal buy-in form and upload it into Paycom. If you don't, the surcharge is automatically applied. So we just want to make sure we get those forms. And if you sign up for the high deductible health plan, make sure you give us your HSA information. You can always sign up through KeyBank, and then you can get the TOSO contributions automatically. So it's free money from the company. So I encourage everyone to take advantage of that. And just all you have to do is open your account and send the routing and account information to benefits, and we'll get that set up for you. And last thing, we still have a lot of people with the 401k who don't have their beneficiaries set up. We want to make sure you have that set up. We do not track that at TOSO. It needs to be put in through Charles Schwab. The website, the www.workplace.schwab.com, is where you would log in to get that added. So it's a very large amount of people who don't have that set up. So please log in and do that. If you have any questions, just contact us at benefits@TOSO. And I want to make sure, can those of you online hear us okay?
Unusual.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Please participate online if you're able to. We will be giving away some gift cards for those who participate.
Perfect. Actually, having you stay at that screen for a second.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming in, giving me some more of your time. If you weren't here last time, my name is Derek Stover. I'm a private client banker over at the Springtown location. I just want to start off with a question here. The topic today is saving and investing. We will have probably a fair amount of questions, so I'm asking if we could save them till the end. I want to kind of breeze through a lot of this information to save a lot of time at the end, because I tend to get a lot of questions saving and investing. But first question I have for you guys are, what are some of the big things people tend to save for?
House.
Yeah,
Oh,
college, house, cars.
vacation.
Okay, yeah.
Goals.
Absolutely. Okay.
Motors.
Motorcycles, yeah.
Retirement.
So this is really why saving is so.
Oh, good. Good one.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
What was that one?
Retirement.
Retirement, yes, that's a huge one. So why is saving so important? There are many things in life we want to have money for, some more important than others. Having the right amount saved for your needs, however, is an integral part of financial wellness. So it can really help just unplanned expenses. We kind of hit that pretty hard last time with the health savings. Health things come up, cars break, houses fall apart, things happen. So we always want to make sure we have some savings for anything that could come up. Paying for children's education is a huge one. We'll be talking a little bit about 529s today as well. We'll dig a little deeper into that. Living out your dreams in retirement, making sure we have enough money to make it all the way through retirement without having to struggle. Better prepared for large purchases, like we talked about, a house and a motorcycle and an investment home and or rental properties, whatever the case may be. So if you scan the end there, and Bracy, I'm sure we'll be sending this out.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you scan that, it's a little calculator just to show, you can type in your goals, how much you're able to save, and it'll show with what you're doing, how quickly you'll reach your goals you have. So it's a cool little tool to use. Skip another for me. Thank you. So this is just steps ahead. Look, here's 3 strategies we use when it comes to really just saving. Investing we'll get to here shortly. Step 1, prioritize your spending. Step 2, identify how you could save with your current budget you have. And step 3, develop a plan for long-term goals and save. So that's step 1, prioritize your spending. This is a cool little exercise you guys can do. Doesn't take very much time. Just take 10 minutes, write down everything you spend on in a month on a Post-it note and put it into the 3 categories. So the 3 categories being have to pay bills, daily requirements, anything we would have to do, and then just a fun money bucket. So if you put all those into these categories, and it really helps you see how much money we have no choice but to spend, and then what we can allocate into the more fun stuff. So going on vacations, modding out the car, doing whatever you got, whatever we do. Put the have to pay bills aside, ask yourself, if you have to choose half of the expenses remaining, which would you choose? Look again and ask yourself what things you cannot live without. So does this, and then this is a question really for everyone here. Does this make you think differently about where your money goes each month? So if you kind of start to think about money that's going out, does that kind of make you start to think? A little bit, okay. Perfect, and then step 2, identify savings in your current budget. Think about your budget and where your money goes each month. Analyze your wants and needs and see if you can find a minimum of $100 to save instead of spend. What would you do with the extra $1,200 a year? Another question for you guys. If we had an extra $1,200 in our pockets, what would we do with it? What are some things? Yeah. Student loans, yeah. Airfare, okay, yeah. Summer is here now, so we're starting to plan our vacations. Good little vacation fund. Probably not a terrible time to start saving for Christmas presents. It'll be here before we know it. Right. Perfect. And benefits of refinancing your home. I'm going to talk a little bit about refinancing your home. The next topic we're coming back for next month is all about lending, all encompassing. So we'll talk about refinancing loans, getting loans set up, different programs that we offer, things like that. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time here today on refinancing the home or student loans, but they are a part of the presentation. The main goals is, or the main benefits of refinancing your home is really just going to be lower interest rates, maybe not today, hopefully soon. Lower monthly payments, so that would help us save some money there. And then shorter loan term, so changing from a 30-year to a 15-year, paying off that house a lot quicker. So we have that what we would normally pay for the mortgage each month to allocate to something different, whether that be retirement or more fun things or whatever the case may be. This one's refinancing your student loans. So this is just a cool way to see why to refinance. So it's an example here. If you were to lower your rate by 2% on $180,000 in student loans, you could potentially see savings like this. So if we go from 7% APR down to 5%, monthly payment goes down $181. Yearly payment goes down $22,000. And then the total payment at $21,692. So just a little example to show how impactful a small rate can be. And that goes hand in hand with mortgages as well. So if we find ourselves in a 7%, which is super common nowadays, if we're able to get ourselves to a 5%, the amount of savings is just incredible. Yeah. All right, step 3, saving and investing for college or other educational opportunities. So saving for college, most common vehicle we use or we see is a 529 college savings plan. 529 college savings plan is a tax advantage savings plan designed to help pay for education. Advantages include investing in a 529 may help reduce your estate tax exposure. And when these funds are used for qualified expenses, distributions are not taxable. So that's a very lengthy way of saying if this money is used for any kind of educational expense, it's going to be non-taxable. Proceeds may be used at any accredited post-secondary school in the United States for part or full-time education. Important part about that too is it is transferable. So if you have 2 children and you put your 529 on one child because they're going to be going to school the soonest, they decide, hey, college isn't really for me. I don't really want to do the post-secondary thing. It can always be transferred to the other child. So
Put that child in.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, that does happen.
yeah, at that point, if that child doesn't want to do it, then technically those funds are still in an investment, the 529 plan. You can either leave them there and then use them for some sort of college expense. Or you can take the funds out and it's taxed very similar to such as a Roth 40 or Roth IRA, traditional IRA. You have to pay the 10% penalty from the IRS and then pay your taxes on the capital gains.
Yeah, and I have seen also a scenario where none of the kids wanted to go and the parent goes back. So you could always do that as well.
Can you use it for a grandchild?
Yeah.
That's what I was.
Yeah, yes, you can also do that, yeah. No income limitations on that, so it doesn't matter how much you make, you're able to contribute. You just have to be making some level of money. Owner retains control over the withdrawals, so even though it's set up for your kids or your grandkids, the parent is still the custodian over the funds, so they are in control of the withdrawals, so it doesn't all just get withdrawn at a whim.
I have a question.
Yes,
I went to a birthday party for a 1-year-old one time, and instead of doing like gifts,
Yeah.
they did 529 donation.
oh, yeah.
How does that work? Is there like a link that people can deposit into, or?
Yeah, so and typically 529 plans are set up through the state that in which you live. So of course, it'd be set up through the state of Ohio. From there, yeah, anybody can donate. I believe you just have to have the child's or the parent's information since they're the technical owner of the account. And then I know a lot of times grandparents would like to go on and donate, brother, sister, birthday parties like that. Pretty much anybody can donate to it. They just have to have the information from the plan.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Any more toys?
Right. Yeah, you're seeing that more and more these
Yeah.
days. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of companies will offer what's called a flex spending account. A lot of flex spending accounts, you're able to use that as a contribution to a 529. Yeah. And I didn't introduce Matthew to start, but Matthew Moore is our financial advisor over at the Stringtown, Pickerington, and Downtown branch. Correct. So planning for retirement. This is another cool little tool you can use. You can open this, scan this with your phone, open it up, and it's a calculator to calculate your retirement savings. So you can put in there your 401k, you can put in there the match that TOSO gives you guys, and put the amount of when you want to retire and kind of what you want to retire with, and it lets you know if you're on track for goals. It's a very cool tool just to kind of get a good idea of where you are. And then another question going to the next slide is who can name off a few places or accounts to save for retirement?
Like types of?
Types of, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I yield.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I can punch a brief.
Yeah.
Yes, we have. Yeah, so typically speaking, this is where I come into play more on the bank side, as the financial advisor / retirement advisor. So as you guys just said, we have 401ks, you've got your traditional IRA, Roth IRAs, HSAs. So those of you in the room who are a little bit younger, the Roth accounts are typically speaking a pretty solid investment account. And the only reason I say that, please don't take offense if you are older. Roth accounts need time to grow. And that's really the reason that those are so good. If you invested $7,000 a year for whatever 40 years, right? And then your contributions were say $100,000 over that 40-year span, and that $100,000 grew to $1 million, that's all tax-free, right? You don't have to pay taxes on any of that at any level. And that's why it's much more important to invest in a Roth account when you're younger, because of course you typically have more time from the time you're working through the time that you retire. Now your 401k, that's a huge thing, whether it be an old 401k from a previous employer or whether it be your current 401k. TOSO offers you guys a match, which is literally free money. So I would take that. If you aren't contributing already, I would absolutely contribute to that. The other thing now for the older people in the room. For your 401ks, typically speaking, retirement is anywhere 60, 65. Some people never retire. Some people just work forever, right? But when you're looking at retirement, the scariest thing possible is a crash, right? I mean, think of 2008. Some of us aren't old enough to really have lived through it in a working generation, but 2008 was a scary time. You looked at your 401k and it could have been down 30, 40%. And it pushes back your retirement by 5 to 7, 10 years. So, I mean, that's really where I come into play is retirement planning. We do it for you guys complimentary at the bank. You can take your 401k and there's things that you can do with it to make it more conservative or a lot of people don't know. Once you hit the age 59 and a half, you're able to do what's called an in-service rollover. You can basically move your 401k to an IRA and then invest it in whatever you want to. So you can make it much more conservative. You can put it into like an IRA money market savings account, just so that way it's not dropping if the market tanks.
So in that in-service rollover,
Mhm.
I mean, do you normally if you would want to transfer funds from a 401k to an IRA, it's that a 401k is pre-tax money,
Mhm.
IRA is post-tax money. Do you have in that in-service rollover, is there any penalty
So
for taking pre-tax funds and putting them in a post-tax deferred account?
traditional IRAs are also post-tax or pre-taxed. So they're just like a 401k. Roth IRAs are post-tax where you're already paying the taxes and then you're investing it. So yeah, traditional IRAs, moving it from a old 401k to the traditional, there's no tax implications. Another question that typically gets brought up with that is, let's say you're 62, you're still working for TOSO, of course, and then you guys decide to do the in-service rollover. Yes, your 401k still stays open. Yes, TOSO can still match your contributions. You're not closing anything. You're not causing yourself any taxes. Literally think of it as just a transfer. The IRAs, this also goes for old 401ks. So if you guys worked at a different company previously and then you moved to TOSO and you did not roll over your old 401k into the TOSO 401k, you can do that as well. So traditional IRAs, you take that money, put from the old 401k, put it into the traditional IRA, and then you can do whatever you want with it from there.
Yeah. And old 401ks, if you no longer work at that company, you do not have to be 59 and a half to move it.
Mhm.
You can move it anytime. As long as you're not working for that company anymore, you can always move it.
Is it possible to move money from a 401k from a previous company into a current Roth IRA?
Yes, it's a bit tricky. So moving pre-tax money into a Roth, it's called like a backdoor Roth or just a Roth conversion. You can do it, but you have to pay the taxes on it. Yeah.
What's the easiest way to do that?
The easiest way to do that is get in touch with us and then we'll have to take a look at your particular situation and then just go from there. But typically you would take it from an old 401k, move it to an IRA over with us and then just do the conversion. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty quick thing. You just have to pay taxes, which is also why I would say get in touch with somebody like us, just because we're not tax accountants, but we know enough to be dangerous. So, I mean, we know enough to say, hey, if you do this conversion, you're going to kick yourself into another tax bracket. And that's not smart. Because then everything, whatever's over, that's going to be taxed on.
You said that KeyBank offers retirement planning. So the 401k through TOSO through Charles Schwab, doesn't Charles Schwab already offer retirement planning?
They do. Yeah, Charles Schwab offers retirement planning just the same as we do. We find though that KeyBank is typically more cost effective. Charles Schwab, Edward Jones, Morgan Stanley, big firms like that, they typically charge about $800 to run a retirement simulation. We charge nothing. So that's a pretty big cost up front. The other thing that those companies do is while you're still working, your 401k, you don't actually have to pay anything for it, like a maintenance fee. When you're not working, a lot of times also with old 401ks, you start being charged a maintenance fee. And Schwab is on the higher end, typically speaking, 1 to 1.5% per year is what they'll charge you.
So someone young like me, it may not really make much of a difference, but as I approach retirement, maybe it's like, yeah, it comes off KeyBank.
Yeah, I would say so. But I mean, somebody young like yourself, do you have a Roth account already?
I just have a 401k and I rolled previous 401ks into it.
After this, when we're done, we'll take questions. I'll have her pull up on the computer, just a Roth calculator, and it can show you. I mean, the typical numbers, if you're 18 and you invested for 40 years, I mean, literally $7,000 a year for 40 years. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, maybe $80,000 is what you would have contributed over a 40-year span, averaging 7%, which is on the low side of what you should be averaging. It is about $1 million. And again, that's tax-free, so they cannot tax you.
And if, according to the chart, it shows that the tax status for the 401k traditional IRA is the same,
Yes,
what is the difference between those plans if they both have the same tax treatment?
one's held through your employer and one is held outside of your employer. The maximum contribution limits in a 401k, I believe, are 23,000.
23,000 annual.
And then if a traditional IRA, those are held outside of your employer, max contributions this year are $7,000.
Yeah.
If you're 55 or older, it's $8,000 because you're allowed to do what's called a catch-up contribution.
So if I was maxing out my legal 401k contributions, that's when I'm like, I want to save more than get a traditional IRA on my own.
You could,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, again, at your age, I would recommend the Roth instead of the traditional, just for tax purposes.
Yeah, and that's really what this slide here is demonstrating. Should you have both? So it's not really a or conversation, it's more of an and, because a lot of these things work really well together. So we talked about the HSA and how you can invest.
Someone online had a question.
Yeah.
They said, what about annuities? Is this the same as the IRA?
Yeah, so annuities are a little different. Typically speaking, when you think of an annuity, they're more for retirement planning in general. So you can purchase an annuity inside of an IRA, which is oftentimes what happens. Annuities are inherently safe. So there's many different types of annuities, but they're inherently safe. There's hundreds of different annuities, so it's kind of hard to get into those, but yeah, you can.
Totally. Cool. But yeah, so really having a conversation of not a or, but an and. HSA investments, we talked about those last time. They work really well with going into your 401k and the match. And then once you meet the match, maybe it's a conversation of, should I have an IRA? If I have an IRA, maybe it's time to start having a conversation about brokerage accounts as well. And Matt, did you want to touch on brokerage just a
Yeah.
little bit?
The brokerage account is going to be more similar to your Edward Jones, your Schwab, your Morgan Stanley accounts. Those are going to be to where you can buy literally whatever you want. Mutual funds, stocks, bonds, ETFs, anything that you want on the investment side, you can purchase from a brokerage account. So if you guys said, hey, I've got an extra $1,200 for Derek's question earlier and said, I want to invest it in something. I hear Apple stock is great, or I hear Amazon stock is great, whatever it may be, Toso stock. You guys can then just purchase it from a brokerage account.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, those you can do a lot of different things. They're only post-tax, so you have to put after-tax money into those. Those have no tax favor whatsoever. So if you put in $1,000, it grows to $10,000 by the end of the year. One, you picked a heck of a stock. I mean, that's great return in the year. And two, you have to pay taxes on that $9,000 in growth.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are not tax favorable.
But I would say the benefit of running them in tandem is brokerage accounts, you don't have to wait till you're 59 and a half to access. So if we're saving quite a bit in our 401k, we know we can't touch that money or the IRA money until we're 59 and a half without that 10% IRS penalty. Whereas if you have a brokerage account also that's growing, that's a bucket of money that you guys could access if something came up and you needed to get into it. Yeah. Thanks. So why Key Bank for your saving and investing? We have lots of planning software and lots of strategies over at Key. We use EasyUp. EasyUp's just a easy way to, if you are saving $10.20, round up to that extra 80 that goes into your saving, 80 cents that goes into your savings account, just to the whole dollar. So it's just an easy way to effortlessly save. We also have financial wellness reviews that we talked about a little bit last time. It's just a 30-minute one-on-one sit down. We get a good idea of what everyone's financial picture looks like, and we just give recommendations based on that. We also have Matthew, who's our Key Investment Services I don't want to say rep, but.
Yeah, I mean, like it says up there, we'd basically just sit down and create a comprehensive plan for you. Everybody's gonna be different, have different expenses,
Yeah.
different allocations. So we would create a tailored plan to you.
Yeah, it's a great way just to sit down, and if everyone in here probably has some level of a question when it comes to retirement or saving and investing or whatever the case may be. As simple as it is or as complex as it is, every person we talk to is different, so we have a completely tailored to them experience throughout. Perfect. And then our engagement is ongoing. So we will be coming back next month. I believe it's
It's the third Tuesday of every month.
okay,
so-
third Tuesday.
Yep.
So next one will be all about lending, refinancing, everything loan based from house to personal. And then that is really all we have. What questions does anyone have for us while we're here?
So one I have is that, someone young like myself, that it's, I mean, ever since COVID, that cost of living inflation keeps going up, and it feels as though that, a lot of sources of employment really just don't keep up. So are there any like investment tools that for when I do hit retirement, because also it's like social security.
Yeah.
Who knows if that's actually going to be there
Yeah.
after I've been paying into it my whole life? Is there any way, are there any investment tools that available that KeyBank knows of or is developing that like can help where it's like, yeah, cost of living is outpacing the amount you can earn? Like, here are things you can do ahead of time to prepare for when you do want to retire, because I don't want to work until I die.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep harping on the Roth IRA, but that's really where that comes down to. Most 401ks also offer a Roth contribution as well. It just, they typically aren't matched. So TOSA wouldn't match the Roth contribution. But yeah, I mean, really what you're talking about is a Roth because it grows tax free. So, I mean, if you think of a 401k, let's say you have $1 million in it, right? You really don't have $1 million because you got to pay taxes. So, I mean, if you were to take all that $1 million out, in one lump sum, you would pay probably 42% tax. So you'd have 600,000 left over, $580,000 left over versus that Roth account. If you have $1 million in a Roth and you want to take all $1 million out and put it in your checking account, you can do that. And there's no taxes.
Yeah, I've heard like the anecdotal wisdom I've been given is that tax-free, like pre-tax dollars, if you have time on your side, are better because the growth is larger. That yes, you will have to pay taxes when you withdraw, but it's the growth year over year. Because like if you start with more earlier, the growth you get is much greater. And that extra growth outpaces the amount you would pay in taxes.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up a Roth IRA calculator for you guys. So let's just say you start with nothing. You make an annual contribution of $7,000. And let's just say you're currently 20 years old. You want to retire at 65. 7% is the expected rate of return. It's pretty average. Let's just say 22% tax bracket. Okay, so you would have contributed $315,000 in total contributions. That would be worth $2.14 million in that time frame. So 45 years. And I mean, again, to your answer or to your point, that's all tax free. So if the cost of living continues to go up, which it will, of course, I mean, you're going to have tax free dollars to spend. Again, think of this in your regular traditional 401k. That's $2.1 million in a traditional 401k is not 2.4 or $2.1 million. You have to pay your taxes. And that's really the kicker to that. The other thing with what you're mentioning with the inflation and the cost of living, a lot of people don't really realize that is with your 401ks. I mean, we all know what's happening in November, right? It's an election. I don't care who you vote for. Everybody always gets crazy about it. And of course, the markets typically get crazy around the election time. A lot of people will say, hey, you know what? I'm going to move my funds to a safe investment, or I'm going to put them in a savings account, or the savings account in the 401k. That can be really detrimental to your growth. And I say that because if your savings account in the 401k is earning, say, 2% or 1%, and inflation is 3% or 4, whatever it is, you're losing money. I mean, you're losing buying power. And that's really where we come into play, is trying to help you guys decide what investments to do / when not to do them. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but all we can do is try our best, right? But yeah, I mean, that's a big thing too, is keeping up on your 401k, keeping up on how it's allocated, and just trying to make the best decision.
Are you able to shed some light on?
Yeah, so Roth 401k and Roth IRA are the same things. It's just one's offered by your employer and one's offered not by your employer. It would be through like a Schwab or a Key Bank, Key Investments.
Yeah, within most 401ks, you're able to do either. So even if you want to split it 50-50, you can go half into traditional, half into Roth.
I think we actually had someone from Schwab come and explain their specific options.
On the calculator you showed, is there a way to compare that? Shows like you do that, it's 2.1 million. Is there a way to factor in like $7,000 post-tax would be, well, like 8,000-9,000 pre-tax? Is there a way to factor that kind of, like the growth you get on the pre-tax in addition to the tax savings you would have while you're investing? Is there a way to like get more to the nitty-gritty comparing? Like, if I have this much money, I put this much pre-tax, or if I do this much post-tax, what will the end result be?
Yeah, so I mean, this is just showing versus a taxable account. A taxable account, would think of it as like a brokerage account that I mentioned earlier. So let's say you put $7,000 a year into a taxable brokerage account and you're purchasing the exact same investment. Tax favor, you're losing $700,000. You'd have 700,000 more in a Roth account comparably to the tax account. And that's because you're paying taxes every year in the taxable account. Now, if you're comparing it to a 401k or a traditional IRA, they're going to grow exactly the same. So if you do 7,000 in a Roth, 7,000 in a 401k, they will grow identically.
Yeah, and well, I guess what I'm getting at is that if I'm putting 7,000 in a Roth IRA,
Mhm.
that's post-tax dollars, where if I were putting them in 401k deduct from my check, that 7,000 post-tax is actually more like 8,000-9,000 pre-tax. Is there a way to factor that extra pre-tax money into the end result?
Yeah, you can do that. Let me see here. Uh, I guess if we want to do apples to apples, we could do 7% contribute. 60, 401k balance at 0, annual rate of return, do 7. Okay. Set this. And okay, there you go. So, well, this is also with employer match. Let me turn that down to 0. Okay. So yeah, I mean, this is the exact same equation, $7,000 to average rate of return 7% for the same 45 years. And it comes down a little under.
With that employer match was higher, I guess it's like that.
Yeah.
2.9, it's like, wow, 2.9, that's more, but it's also like, yeah, but then you have to figure out actually paying.
Yeah, I mean, if we do the employer match at 100%, which TOSO offers you guys 4%, it'd be $3.2 million.
Figure out what the tax on that is.
Well, and that's, I mean, yeah.
And
Doing the tax on that, it depends on where your tax bracket is when you retire. The other thing that's more an issue for younger generation is, I mean, what are the tax brackets going to look like in 45 years? I mean, that's a loaded question, but I mean, it's true. The tax brackets are not going to look the same as they do today. And that's another, depending on who you listen to speak, would tell you Roth is the only way to go because you don't know what the tax bracket. I mean, you know, the enemy today is you're 22%, right? That's what you're paying right now. And then you put it into a Roth account versus in 45 years, 22% could be a long shot away. I mean, that could be the the lowest tax bracket. So, I mean, that's the other thing you're dealing with a 401k is you just don't know what tax brackets are going to be. Yep. Does anybody have any questions? What is it? Yeah, so fiduciaries basically just have to do what's in the best interest of their clients. So I'm a fiduciary. So if I'm working with a 401k, I would have to do what's in your guys' best interest. Versus if I pick one investment that may make me more commission than a different investment, but it's not in your best interest, that would send me to prison. That's not really a great place to go. So yeah, fiduciaries have to do what's in your best interest all the time. Pretty much everybody in the investment space is a fiduciary. It's one of those things. I'm sure you guys have seen the commercials for like Fisher Investments that say we do better when you guys do better, right? Or we're fiduciaries, the other guys aren't. Pretty much everybody is a fiduciary in the investment space. You probably wouldn't be a good firm in today's space if you're not a fiduciary. You just don't see, it's people market it better than others. And that's what Fisher Investments did on that commercial is they just marketed it really well by saying, hey, we are fiduciaries, not the other guys. The other guys that they're referencing could be a mom and pop shop out of Idaho, right? It can be anybody. But yeah, pretty much everybody's a fiduciary. It really just comes down to when you're picking an investment advisor, who's going to be the best price and the best quality. And that's really where, to your question earlier, Key Investment Services is a very high quality for a very low price. We're a regional bank, right? So with Key Investments being part of the bank, we typically offer lower fees and lower expenses than most other firms do. And everybody offers the exact same investments. So it's not like one person offers something better than the other.
So correct me if I'm wrong here, but with a Roth, you're limited to what, 7,000, that's your cap. With a 401k, you can put 22,500, right? Per year.
That is correct. Yeah, that's correct.
So let's bump
now,
let's bump
within
that percent, that percent to contribute on average, since you're talking about $100,000, let's make that more like 12 or 15%.
On the calculator that's currently up,
Yep.
you want to do 12%?
Yeah, let's just do 12.
Okay. And now that's also correct, but within a 401k, contribution limits are different for a Roth account. You can still go up to the 23,000 as well in the 401k for a Roth. It just traditional IRAs and Roths outside of a 401k have different contribution limits.
And then down there, annual rate of return, the S&P is more like 12%, 10 or 12%.
Yeah, the problem with doing that is unless you put your 401k in a pure S&P 500 index fund, you're not going to get that 12% return. And that's the other problem with most 401ks.
But the younger people should consider that.
Correct. Yes. And that's the problem with most 401ks, though, is as you guys just pointed out, the Schwab gentleman was in here to talk to you. They only offer so many investment choices within a 401k. And that's the other difference to an IRA or a Roth IRA is there's typically a lot more investment options for you guys to choose from. And as this gentleman is saying, the S&P 500 in the last 10 years is up 178%. I mean, that is extremely hard to fight.
But let me just throw one other thing out there. That's not completely true with the Schwab. You can open a PCRA account and you can invest directly with Apple or directly with Tesla, or just like you're on the stock market with a PCRA account from Schwab.
Is that within your 401k?
It is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, then I stand corrected on that.
So you can take your balance, you can take the amounts of your balance from your 401k, open a PCRA account, transfer the money to it, and start directly investing in EFTs or ETFs, I'm sorry, or directly with certain stocks.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there.
Great.
So the 4% company match,
Mhm.
does it matter? Does that go to a Roth? Is it part of the 7,000?
Typically, the 4% company match is only going to be traditional assets. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they'll only do the traditional. They won't do the Roth.
Yeah. What you contribute would be Roth.
But whatever they match would always be traditional.
Talk a little bit about money market accounts.
Money markets just on the saving, just on the
That's
bank side.
another option, yeah.
Yeah, so money markets, as far as the bank side goes, typically just like a high yield savings account. We're seeing decent rates right now. I would say probably the highest rates we've seen in 12-ish years. We're floating right between 3 to 5% is fairly normal for a money market. The only thing that could change that is when the Federal Reserve starts cutting down rates. Those are probably gonna drop.
And those
Okay.
are, money markets are completely liquid, right? We don't-
Yes, yeah. So money markets on the bank side are completely liquid. Money markets on the investment side are different things.
Yeah, they work differently, but money markets in general are typically a liquid investment. So you can take freely or you can put in money freely. Those are also taxable. So if you make X amount of dollars throughout the year, you got to pay taxes on those at the end of the year. But they're great to invest in right now. As Derek said, interest rates are up pretty high. The highest they were, I believe, is 5.5. Some online banks were offering closer to 6. They've come back down closer to 4.5 to 5% right now. But those are really great interest rates. But it's also, I mean, your mortgages are also 7%. So it's yes.
That's right.
Yes, money markets are FDIC insured. Through KeyBank will offer like a high yield money market account, and it's FDIC insured up to 250,000.
Is that a question?
She said, if I have an inherited 401k, can this be transferred to a Roth IRA?
You'd have to do a conversion. Inherited accounts are they're just difficult. It depends on when you inherited it. If it's before 2019, you can actually keep the account through the remainder of your lifetime without having to take all the money out of it. If you've inherited a IRA or a 401k after 2019, after the passage of the Secure Act, you only have 10 years to take it. So if a non-spouse, and that's for non-spouses, I should actually say that. So if your father passed away and left you money, you would have to take the tax or take it all out and pay the taxes within 10 years now. But again, if it was before 2019, you could leave it just as if it were your 401k for the remainder of your life.
Can you transfer like your IRAs between companies? Is that simple to do?
You can do an IRA rollover once every 12 months, typically speaking. But yes, you are allowed to move them from company to company. Yeah. I don't think we ever finished your question. I'm sorry. So yeah, so I'm a fiduciary, and I should say I'm only on the investment side with Key. So I don't work on any of the bank products. Now, if you were to come to me and ask these questions, yes, I can help you, and yes, I'd have to answer truthfully, of course. And I would say you'd be very hard pressed to go into any financial institution and find somebody who would not do what's in your best interest. As far as legalities go, some people are not fiduciaries that work inside of a bank. So, I mean, legally speaking, that's the answer. But yeah, if you were to come to somebody such as myself, a financial advisor, we're all fiduciaries. So we would have to tell you what's in your best interest. Yeah. Anybody have any other questions?
There's no more.
And also, I want to, while given the numbers that the gentleman on the on here said, I want to go back and play with those numbers.
I think the difference is that you are allowed to invest pre-tax dollars more into a 401k, and then you're letting the compound interest accumulate a lot more.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
you don't know what your tax rate's going to be in X amount of years. Understood, but
exactly.
compound interest really lets that number balloon. You're not You're not limited to $7,000 a year.
Yes, that's true. So if you're contributing to your 401k and you're maxing out your Roth contributions there to the 23,000 total that you can do a year, I mean, if you want to do more, absolutely, the $7,000 a year is a great place to put it, just because you can. But yeah, I mean, if you're wanting to max out or do a Roth IRA outside of your 401k, as a fiduciary, your best answer to that would be max it out in your 401k first. Because as he just said, you can do more than $7,000. And if Schwab allows you guys to do a separate account where you can invest directly into any fund that you want, yeah, I mean, an S&P 500 fund is very difficult to beat. So yeah, I mean, that's a very good place to put it. Yes, sir. Mhm.
Is there like a point in age before retirement where it's no longer really a smart investment to do it?
That's hard to determine. I would say, I mean, there's no real cutoff point to where you say, hey, don't invest into a Roth account. I mean, it's just, we can give you both options and kind of show you the difference. But yeah, I mean, it's really, I would say a good rule of thumb, maybe 55, closer to 60. Just, it depends on when you're going to retire, right? So, I mean, if you're going to retire in 5 years and you put in money at 60 years old and you pay the taxes on it, right? Just so you can put it into the Roth account. And then 5 years later, let's just say that money, you've invested 35,000 over the last 5 years. And let's just say it's grown to 40,000. It's only $5,000 difference. And that would be your tax. You'd be getting out of taxes on just $5,000 versus in this illustration up on the board, you would have invested $315,000 over a 45-year span, and it's now worth $10.6 million. And now that $10.3 million of growth is not taxable. So, I mean, you can sit and do a calculator, or you could come into us and we could do the calculator for you and just show you based on where you're at currently. If you were to invest for the next 10, 15, 20 years, it would look like this for you. And again, a lot of it has to do with what your growth is going to be. I mean, if you invest in a conservative fund and you're not making much money as far as growth, it also wouldn't benefit you too much. But if you invest in something that makes a lot of money, right, and you grow quite large, it would make more of a difference for you. But yeah, I would say a good rule of thumb, probably 50, 55, unless you're going to work forever.
Someone messaged and said, doesn't TOSO match 4% if we choose Roth 401k?
You'd have to get with her. Most companies do not.
It's only the traditional is what's matched at 4%.
I would say I'd very hard pressed to find a company that would match a Roth contribution. Yeah. It's more for tax deductions on the company's part too. Yep. Of course, yeah. If there's no other questions, then you guys are free to go. Derek and I'll be hanging out for another 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it may be. If you guys have any questions you'd like to come up and ask us. Yep. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining.